Hi, everyone. I am Kate Volman, and you are watching Hanging Out at the Hive. And I am so excited because this is the first episode that we are, well, actually, no, this is our first episode with our new name. So it used to be Buzzing on Blab with Mary Wong, and now we've switched over the name. And we're really excited about our guest today because we are talking all about turnaround and growth strategies for your business. But before we get into our very special guest, I'm going to turn it over to Mary because she wants to share a little bit about our new brand, our new name and brand, and we're excited about it.
Hi, everybody. How are you? We just wanted to, I think it's one of those things where when we started out and we started doing this, everybody came to the table, and I should say they came to the Hive, and it was very exciting. And we didn't, I highly was not educated on how do you take all this social media stuff and make it work. I should have obviously gone to Kavita a little while earlier while we talk about this whole thing that we're talking about today, but what you don't know is what you don't know. And so when we started, we realized it was more frustrating, honestly, than what it was worth. So the blab was cute, it was great, and it worked well for what it was worth, and I really enjoyed it. But, bees want and need to find the best location to be able to pollinate and to be able to grow. And if it doesn't work, they move to the next location. And so consider that we've moved to our best location to be able to pollinate and get the best honey and to get our best nectar. So we have moved on to our site that you see now. It's much easier to get on. Google Hangouts is an easy site that everybody can get on. Nobody, no more blank spaces, nobody talking to the blank area that the Brady Bunch was on. And Kavita, we welcome you. So we're going to go forward on our new Hangout, and so go ahead.
Awesome. Well, we're excited, and we have a new logo, so we hope that you were able to take a look at that. And today, we're so excited because our special guest is Kavita Sahai, and she is a turnaround and growth strategist. And I just love that name because while I've known Kavita now for a few months, she's been part of Mary's Hive, and I've seen her at different events. We actually had a great sit down the other day, and she walked out of the office, and I said, "Man, that girl is smart. She is super smart. She gets right down to business. There is no sugarcoating of anything." And Mary and I both know some of the companies that she's working with, and she's just doing such a phenomenal job. Again, really just helping them identify where they need to turn some things around and how they can really grow and scale their business. So that's what we're going to be talking about today with Kavita, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. So Kavita, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's such an honor. This is a topic that I love because I've pretty much dedicated my life and study to studying great companies, working with great companies, and really starting to identify what are the patterns, what are the good practices that allow some companies to really hit it out of the park while others struggle, right? So in studying these patterns, I've come up with some tips that I thought I would share with you guys. The first one being good companies.
Wait, I'm going to stop you right there because you do have a really interesting past. So just share a little bit about some of the companies that you worked with and kind of your journey, just so people can kind of get a little bit of context from where you're going to be speaking about these strategies from.
Sure, absolutely. So I started my career in mergers and acquisitions. I worked in the defense and aerospace field, which was funny because I got placed there in this really high demand, the M&A space in defense and aerospace. I'm going to date myself now. Back in '01 was obviously very hot, and it was in high demand, and I got selected because they thought I was an engineer. So that's when racial profiling worked in my favor 100%. So got to work with pretty much all the defense companies that were raising equity and doing activity at that time, which was amazing. So you're talking about L3, really pretty much every large defense manufacturer at that time was raising equity. So I got to do that. Then I moved on to do private equity venture capital. Worked with some great companies there. The firm had invested in Lumber Liquidators, Agfa Monotype, which is basically your Times New Roman fonts. So this company owns the fonts, and they license it to printer companies. So they're public now. And these are all companies I worked with while they were private. So Microban, which is, you'll see it on a lot of products for antibacterial. So did a bunch there in technology, and then went and got my master's at Berkeley, really focused on, again, entrepreneurship. And then came down to Florida, Boca Raton, and was working for Sun Capital, which is the largest turnaround buyout shop here, and really focused there on more consumer product type companies and how to change their model so that they could be successful and then eventually IPO or be sold. So that's sort of my background when I was being employed. I about 7 years branched off due to some disagreements in social ethics, we could say, and decided to start my own business helping people. And through that journey, I discovered that though I had to that date only worked with, I would say, a profile of white males, I had this opportunity to work with females. And what I thought was really cool about that was they're really focused on solving different problems, right? They're working on solving problems that are important to society in a really cool and different way. And they're really focused on the passion and not the profit. So I've really tried to shift my model to focusing on women-owned businesses, trying to bridge the gap of capital. So I think one large issue that women business owners face today is one that we as women faced 50 years ago, which how do you close the gap in what men make in the same job as women? Well, now the gap, that gap has started to come closer together, but the one large gap still remains is how do you fund women-owned businesses, right? So they're getting, I think the statistic was 2%, right, of the money, whereas the amount of startups and so forth is closer to 50-50. So that's a really interesting space. So that's sort of where I went, and then I worked with a company, Back Ops, where the mission was, and we'll talk a little bit about vision, but their vision was to inspire a greater next generation by allowing mothers to have time to spend with their kids. So essentially the thought was a distributed workforce of women in accounting and HR. So worked with that ground up. They raised $7 million from companies like Google Venture, and now have continued to scale. So that is the sort of stuff that really gets my blood pumping. But I love all my clients; they're all amazing, and they're not all women. But but it's definitely become more of a focus.
That's really cool, and you have a very diverse background, and I find it really fascinating, especially because you were in such like a male-dominated industries to move over into working more with women. So you touched on women being very passionate, and obviously Mary would agree with this because she works with so many. I mean, I hear her have this conversation with a lot of different women on, they're super passionate, they love what they do so much, they just give their services away for free, or they just do things out of the goodness of their heart. And obviously that is not the way to grow a successful business. So I'm excited to hear some of those things that we need to look at in our business, and some things that we can shift and change in order to be more successful and to actually grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things I sent you is it's the way I kick off all my meetings, which is a business canvas, which to me is sort of a one-page business plan. And this plan really depends on whether you're a startup or an existing business, because as a startup, all of the things you're going to say here are assumptions. You don't know who your customer is. You guess that this is what that person looked like. You don't know who your key partners are. You're guessing that these are the people that they are. In an existing business, I think more of that should be things that you know, but sometimes there's still assumptions. And the point is you should be able to slowly test these assumptions to at least have a one-page business plan as a starting point, because I really think that if you want to be successful and you want to grow and scale your business, you have to have a plan to do so. It just unfortunately doesn't happen just by praying and hoping. And I think that you have to write it down. You have to write down goals, and you have to write down a vision, which to me is sort of the other really important thing. If you want to grow and scale your business, and when I say grow and scale, I don't mean like 10% growth, right? I'm talking about doubling and tripling your current base. You have to have a vision. You have to have a vision that inspires your customers. You have to have a vision that inspires your employees. And this vision doesn't always necessarily be the exact thing you do. So, for example, the founder of Cranium, which is Richard Tate, his vision was to help people build self-confidence, right? So Cranium is a game. His vision wasn't to create a really cool game. His vision was, I'm going to create something that's going to build self-confidence. Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, he said, my vision is I'm going to create this amazing workplace where people are respected. He never mentions coffee, right? So these are visions that are sort of grander and beyond the product or service. And I'll tell you, nowadays, a product and service is just expected to be good. So that alone is not a plan. It's not, hey, I make this really good thing. You have to have something beyond that. You have to inspire beyond that. Another one, which was in the example I sent you too, was Airbnb. And their vision was, we want to create a platform that allows people to live and not just visit cities, right? They wanted to, I think their whole thing is around creating a sense of belonging. Right, and that's very different when you think about, their vision is to just create this platform. No, their vision was to create a sense of belonging, and those are visions that inspire people and partners and employees, and that's really the basis and the first sort of stepping stone into growth and scalability. The second thing, like I said, I think you have to write down once you've inspired people and you've gotten that part of your business down, you have to create a path. Whether that's through marketing, and again, it just depends company to company where the issue is that they're not growing and scaling. Sometimes people have great demand and they don't understand why they're not more profitable or growing, right? So then that's more of an operational issue. But I find that when you dissect your business in certain ways, you start tweaking and experimenting. And I really look at it as like the scientific method. So you're making a series of assumptions and you're testing and you're tweaking to see what's going to work best for your business. One of the things I always... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just curious when you're meeting with somebody, if there is one thing. Let's talk about the businesses, not the startup, but maybe somebody that's been in business for a few years, but they've always been in this constant state of not really growing, kind of staying the same, losing clients, gaining clients, that kind of thing.
Right.
Do you find something in particular that most of these companies have in common? Like, they all don't have the right marketing plan, or they all don't have the right process to service clients? Like, is there something that always comes up for you?
Yeah, so one of the patterns that I've definitely seen in existing businesses that are, like you said, ebbing and flowing through customers, and they usually have owners there's a point in a business where you need to stop working in it and start working on it. Right, and that you cross that threshold when you have enough customers, right? So in the beginning, you're doing everything. You're the janitor, you're the CEO, you're growing business. But once you get to a certain scale where you have employees and you have a structure in place, it really becomes, are you utilizing your employees and are they in the right place? And I'd say that's probably the number one thing I see in existing businesses, right? So sometimes they have employees that that have been with them for so long, but they're not in the right position, or they don't know, or they no longer have skill sets that are relevant to the task that they need, or they've structured it in such a way that they feel that they're so integral that they never take the time out to look and revise their strategy. So the business canvas is something that's a living, breathing document. It's not like you do it once and you let it go. If you're a startup, you're looking at it every month. If you're an existing business, you're looking at it at least every 6 months, right, to see, does it make sense? Are we doing the things that we need to achieve our goals? Another thing that I will say is huge, especially with women-owned businesses, is nobody looks at their numbers. So nobody is like, okay, we spend this much on marketing and this is what we received, right?
What? Isn't
and I shouldn't single out women because I should use for men too. But yeah, you should be looking at your financials every single month. My favorite thing to say is you can't manage what you don't measure. So, if you're a services business and you have other service professionals, what is their productivity? What's the productivity of each person in your office? What's your capacity? If they have 40 hours times whatever their cost is, right? That's your total. How much of that are you utilizing? How much are you billing out? So just keeping an eye, I think, on, KPIs, key performance indicators, makes, to me, the biggest difference. It's probably the biggest thing I've seen across companies that's not being done. That sort of quick change immediately helps decision making.
That is so crazy. It's so crazy. But
I know. I always think it's crazy too. But I'm a finance major, so I sort of love numbers, and I'm super geeky. So I just.
So can I just interject for just a minute?
Please.
Because I think that here you have all of the key components, and it's very interesting because I'm a big proponent of the vision and the plan, because I really think that that sets the tone for everything else that you've written down here. It's really or you could set it backwards and you can go the other way. But to me, if you don't have the vision and the plan, or what you're trying to accomplish, all the other things is really for nothing. When you look at all this, it's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of the essence of numbers, and it's those pieces. And a lot of people within the company are not necessarily all the numbers. So it's how do you, as a business owner, and make sure that your people understand those expectations, that, just what you just said. You get paid X, Y, Z. This is what we have to make expenses. This is what you have to do, because those expectations need to be very clear, I believe, so people understand what their roles are, what they have to make, so that we can make our numbers. And I don't know that whether they're men or women, they do a very good job of explaining those things, so that everybody is on the same team to get to whatever the goals are to reach those goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, absolutely. I think, transparency is huge. I think sometimes CEOs of companies feel like they're very lonely, they're alone in their role, when in reality, if you've hired the right people around you, you should be able to share, hey, my goal is that this company hits this revenue mark and this profitability mark, and these are the things that we have to do to achieve that. And just by defining it even for themselves, they're going to start to look and measure and get people on that same track. And really empower people, right? Because if you've hired the right people, then maybe, for example, your head of sales, they should be in charge of their P&L for sales. They should have the metrics and everything they need to manage it, and you should empower them to make those decisions then. So then it's not a matter of, can I spend this much on this new campaign I thought of? It's like, yeah, that's great if you want to, but just remember there has to be an ROI. There has to be, so you start creating a culture of everyone sort of thinking about things in terms of ROI. If I want to do this thing, what is it going to yield? And sometimes we don't know the answer, and that's where the experimentation comes into it. But that's when you want to document, hey, we did this, we spent this much money, and this is what it yielded, just so, the next time you have all those learnings.
Okay.
Do you have any tools or anything that you recommend in any of the tracking or the stuff that you work with your clients? Or are you just Excel? Excel is good enough.
Microsoft has some great visualization tools, Microsoft BI, so you can put in lots of data. Like you could import a big CSV file of all sorts of different things, your sales by person, product by month, and it'll give you some great visualization of where things are going and where you're spending money. So that's one that I really like. Most of the reports, I think, are so company specific that unless you're a large company that's dashboarding, you should just create what metrics you think you want to see, and then make sure you're getting the information you need from your different departments or accountant. QuickBooks has a lot of functionality as well. You just have to, if you could tell your accountant exactly, hey, I need to see, profitability by this, and then you guys can work together to create a system of what metrics are required to get that information. QuickBooks is a really good tool that most business owners are, using for sure. So that's another one that I like. I like Asana for project management. So I just think a lot of times too, what I've noticed with companies is they have excess employees that are not necessarily doing anything. And a good way to track that is by their tasks. So as a CEO at any given time, you can log in and see, okay, this is what all the different people are working on. And that way, if that doesn't change week to week, it sort of alerts a problem.
I think that's so crazy too, to think that people are not doing stuff in roles. They're just hanging out.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's not that they're hanging out, and I think a lot of times maybe people, again, that goes down to people not being in the right position. My favorite book is Going from Good to Great, right? And it's like you got to get the right people on the bus. And so a lot of times with existing businesses, they've aged with the wrong people, and they just need to either refresh staff or sometimes it's creation of a new position they didn't realize they needed to get it there. But the people are the most important thing, and that's where vision comes into play again, because it's hard to inspire people to sell coffee, but it's a lot easier to inspire people to say, hey, we're going to create jobs where we respect employees and it's going to be an amazing workplace, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of inspiration that moves forward. Or the company I worked with Backups, what we said is we're inspiring the next generation. What we do is so important because what we do is allow mothers to spend the hours that they need with their kids. What could be more important in life than that?
Awesome.
And so that's how we inspired people to do accounting and HR via online platforms.
Nice. I love it. Okay, so let's go into some of your other points. And we will be sharing the sheet that that Kavita is going off of. So you'll be able to get a copy of that for sure.
So, the next thing I think that's really important where people spend a lot of money, where they give a lot of free product or, free services like we talked about, is the marketing, right? So people spend a lot into the general bucket of marketing. And so one of the things I say that's really important for a startup or existing business is really understand what's your current customer acquisition cost. And how does that change depending on the different program that you employ? So customer acquisition cost is essentially all your sales and marketing that you had to spend to get the number of customers in any given time. So you could do it, by month. You could say I spent this much in sales and marketing and divide it by the amount of customers you acquired. And that would be your cost. And that's super important because sometimes what people don't realize is that's a number you should compare to your profit, not your revenue, right? So a lot of people are like, okay, well, it cost me $4 to acquire this customer, and I sell my shirt for $7, so I'm making $2. Well, that's not true, depending on how much your shirt cost you to make, right? So it's just making sure that these avenues are profitable. The other thing is, obviously, marketing is a huge, as you probably can speak to as well, Kate, is a huge realm of experimentation. So, granted, I love scientific theory probably more than most, but I feel like, again, this is another place that you need to test, and Coca-Cola actually has a really cool rule, which they say it's 70, 30, and 10. So 70% of your marketing should be on tried and true tested methods. So SEO, SEM, any of the general categories that you would think your marketing program would fall into. Then of that, you would take 20 of that, and you would say, well, of those categories, say a certain ad worked. Let's twist that ad a little bit and try a couple different new avenues. So that's 20% of your budget. Then 10% is completely out there, like, hey, podcasts are popular, let's do podcast ads. Or, you know what, I think direct mail is actually the new cool thing because nobody's doing direct mail. So whatever that 10% is really for the high risk, high reward type opportunities. So I think that's an interesting way to look at sort of your budget. But again, always, whenever you start a campaign or a project, just see how much is it going to cost and what is my expected ROI, and does it match? And document that, because 2 years from now, someone's going to have the same idea, and it's good to go back and see what the learnings were.
I love that little formula. I think that's a great great thing way to be when you're, because it's
and
so
again, that was
easy
Coca-Cola,
to
not
do
me.
everything. Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. In fact, I used to work with. Don't take credit for Coca-Cola. No, it's
exactly.
I find it really fascinating because there's a lot of tools online. A lot of them that I use, just being in the online marketing space, that lets you find what other companies are doing. And when I used to work with a huge direct marketing company, that was a really big thing for us. We had to be looking at a lot of other people's ads and creating that swipe file of what are they doing, like what are people doing. If you see an ad over and over again, most likely it's converting for that person. So there's a lot of these, like you said, tried and true. If you don't have that tried and true yet for your business, look within your industry to be able to find some of the tried and true for another company that's like yours. But I loved finding examples like this. It was really interesting to try to see how other companies are navigating the space, especially if they have a huge budget like Coca-Cola, and you may not. So exactly. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, that's definitely one place where I see a lot of companies not capturing cost is also the free products and service. So if you give something for free, you still need to record it against your marketing and sales. That was still part of something that you did to acquire that customer. So I just, again, highlight, because I've seen that so often with companies, that's a cost that they don't capture, and then all of a sudden on their financial statement, they're like, oh, my cost of goods sold is so high. Well, no, it's not so high. It's that you gave away, $1 million in product, so that's, that's more usually the case. You know, so that's, you know, that's probably the other big one. And you're right. If you're a startup, there's so many tools to spy and see what ads are people doing. And even if you just study them, I always tell people to create a Google alert for your industry, your competition. You know, it's good to see what other people are doing and what press avenues they're being published in, right? Like who's talking about them and where, and would they want to talk about you too?
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. I love these. I'm like taking so many notes. This is just such good information for people to really identify. I don't know that, Mary, I'd be very curious to know if we put it out there to people, if they even knew what their customer acquisition costs, their lifetime value of the customer. I wonder how many would actually know the answer to that question, because I know in speaking to a lot of business owners, oftentimes they're not quite sure, or they're not tracking it.
Well, I think what I like about this sheet so much, and I'm sorry if they didn't get this, is that you have the definition. You have what does key activities and value proposition, because although you're naming some big name companies here that would be very versed in all of this, who I deal with a lot with are some of the smaller to mid-sized nonprofits, as well as your companies that are either startups or mid-sized businesses, many women-owned businesses, that they don't want to be small forever. They want to grow. They want to get bigger, and their mentality is to be bigger, but they don't know all of this. And some of it is also the ability to be able to take their customer profile and how valuable that customer profile is, and how do you expand that customer profile. You know, like you talked earlier about marketing, looking at that marketing, if you're going to spend, and I'm using this as an example because obviously a small business is not going to spend $1 million on product for marketing. However, if you're going to expand a customer profile, to invest in promoting a new product or something like that, that's not such a bad decision to make if that's your end game and that's what you want to do. And making that part of your business plan and what you want to be able to look at. So I think like having an action plan on these things is a good thing for that. Because I don't know that everybody understands what that cost and effect is. Because there is an effect. There's a consequence for all decisions.
Yeah. Exactly. No, and you know what? I work with many big companies, and I've been on the boards, you know, of a lot of larger companies as well. And I can tell you that it's something that you forget. You forget to focus on it, and you forget to keep revisiting. So it's not just, you know, it's not just that smaller companies. And the reason I like it on one page is it has to be cohesive. So if your customer profile is somebody who shops at Walmart, your pricing can't be astronomical, right? And your key partners can't be misaligned. So it just causes this. It causes you to look and say, does this make sense? Does it make sense? Do all these pieces flow together in a way that's cohesive?
And the one thing that I noticed on here that is interesting, and it would be interesting in to have too, is competition. To me, is what does your competition do? So especially I know a lot of people don't worry about that, but in this day and age, if you have a brick and mortar store, and nowadays it's not even brick and mortar, it's that virtual reality. You know, having a virtual store is just as bad as having a brick and mortar store because everybody shops you. So having to know who your competition is and what they're doing, you need to be really on top of that so that you can understand what is your differentiator.
Yep, and that's why I really like creating the Google alert for that. You know, and I'll tell you the reason that I think it's not on the Canvas. And again, the Canvas is something that's pretty widely used, so I can't take complete credit, though I tried to put in some descriptions to make it easier to navigate. And I use the Airbnb example as well, so you guys can sort of see a real life company and how they did it. But the reason that you don't worry about as much about competition, for example, with Starbucks, and when he's creating his vision, he's not worried about all the other coffee shops that are in the area. This is what mine is, and I can even bring it to a local company that I don't think will mind sharing, is FroPro, which we sampled their products at the last event, right? And so they're not a protein company, right? If you ask them, their vision is that they are a community that supports comebacks, right? That's their thing. Is we help people have their second chance and make their comeback. And that is the vision, right? And so how do you find competition for something like that? It's a little bit out of scope, but having said that, you always want to keep an eye on what people are doing. So, creating Google alerts and things like that to better understand what your competition in your local area, and even, like you mentioned, the internet, is so very important. Another point I'd like to bring up, because you brought up customer profiling, which I think people really underestimate, is it's called customer development. So customer development means you really spend time understanding your customer. And the term was coined by, what was his name? Steve Blank, I think was his. But he was my professor, and I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but he created this whole thing around customer development, and it's so important because if you were to interview your customers, or potential customers if you were a startup, you would learn so many amazing things, like what traits they have in common, where they shop, where they read, what kind of things they read. Is what you're offering really a solution to them? So for example, if you had, like you mentioned, a brick and mortar store, if you were marketing to the wrong kind of person, you were going to struggle for each customer, right? But if you could pinpoint the right person who was going to be an ambassador for you, who was just like, oh my God, I love this style of sarong, it is perfect for me and all my surfing beach buddies. Who are ages 16 to 18. If you could get that specific, that's when marketing and targeting really works for you, and you're not struggling. So I think a lot of times for new businesses, it's a must. If you don't do customer discovery and development as a startup, you're going to be dead in the water. But as an existing business, if you think you're struggling for leads or struggling for business, that's not a bad thing to go back to. And start really talking to existing customers or people you think are your customers in your customer profile to better understand what are their needs and are you meeting them.
Would you do that if you were starting, let's say, a new project of development? Is that something you would put out as a to your contacts as a survey or something like that? Or
so customer development cannot be done via internet. It has to be done in person via interview, because you get so much more from the interaction between people than you do via survey, right? And there's follow-up questions that you're not going to get. So customer development is absolutely something you do in person. And yeah, of course, if you are going to say, okay, we're going to start a trendier, line that's going to target a completely, each project would almost warrant its own canvas, its own plan, if that's the case, right? And in those instances, you really want to understand your customer profile, because again, you're going to be fighting this uphill battle if you don't know who that person is and where they go, what words resonate with them. So again, there's this whole push around language to market fit. Is what you're saying fit the market? Does it resonate with the market that you're trying to attract? Otherwise, you could have a great product and a great idea, but you're not resonating, the language isn't resonating. But if you did a bunch of these interviews, people would start talking about the pain in the same way, and you'd be like, okay, that's the word to use.
So are you finding in the marketplace now, so I was talking to somebody that does marketing, and they told me that for many years that the marketing and crafting of marketing language, because you just brought it up, was that they explained to great detail and explaining products and how what they did. And now it's very short, concise, and to the point, and they don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And if they don't, and most times they go out and they just research it themselves. So to spend a lot of airtime, a lot of airwaves, and a lot of stuff, they're much more pictorial in what they look at versus looking at it, and they don't want to hear all the other stuff from you talking. Is that right? Or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think who did an amazing job of that was Steve Jobs, right? So he came out with the Mac Pro thing, right? And you could have had a spec sheet, how much it weighs, the capacity, whatever, and all he did was put up one slide that said, and with a picture of the product that said world's thinnest laptop. That's it.
Okay.
Well, one compelling statement. We are a society of ADD, right? So we literally could not sit and read more than one line. So it just has to be a compelling line.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, people just want to know what it's going to do for them. Like, what is this going to do for me when I buy it? Like, they don't care how it works, and people get, especially, like, there are salespeople that get really excited, or even business people, they really love to tell you the back end and how it works and what, the way that they got there, well, no, what's it going to do for me? And then they'll dive in and want to know more if, if they would like to. But first you need to see if they're even the right person to explain all that stuff to.
Right. I mean, I think that's kind of why Facebook limits how much text you can put on an ad. They're trying to forcing you into that best practice.
Yeah, that's very true. Sometimes I get frustrated and then I'm like, nope, you have to get better at explaining something very succinctly.
Yeah, I used to, when we worked, I've seen hundreds of business plans from one page to hundreds of pages, and any good idea can be explained on a napkin. It can be explained in a sentence or two at most.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, what else? This is so good. I feel like these are such great topics.
Yeah, Kavita, I'm calling you after this is done.
Awesome. I'm having technical issues.
So
I think Mary had the right idea.
What have you found? What is your favorite piece of working on this? I mean, and I can't believe you. I mean, you look like you're 10. So, in all of this experience that you've had and everything that you've done, I mean, you've ramped up a very impressive resume, and you're obviously very smart, and you're very thought-provoking in every aspect, and how you go about doing it, methodical, and how you go about doing this. But in all of this, something has to rock your boat here. There's got to be a passion within some of this, of what you see. What is it that you love about all of this?
Honestly, I love, and it's funny because I've even when I left to go work full time with Back Ops, the company that's inspiring the next generation, I've realized that for me, it's in working with people to achieve their goals gets me going. And so I can keep achieving and setting new goals, but showing people that they could do that for themselves and within their own businesses, that's what really gets me going. And, my ultimate goal really is to close the funding gap. So, one day you're going to see me with my own fund that funds women entrepreneurs and works to help them achieve greatness. Because I really think that, again, women are working on amazing things. You guys are coming to 21 Drops. She's trying to transform medicine, right, to being more plant-based. That's amazing. That's an amazing goal to have. It's an amazing thing. And so that I could help her, be a small part of achieving that, to me, is incredible.
Well,
right.
As long as we're talking about that, that's a good point, because when we went there, and so I would like to just, for those people that are listening, could you just explain what 21 Drops is? And then I do want to talk just a bit, because there is a bigger and broader issue about that, because it's about education.
Right. So absolutely. So 21 Drops is a company that's transforming healthcare through smell. And plant-based medicine. So essentially using essential oils to heal everyday ailments. And, it's done in a very easy, no-nonsense way in which you really can't mess it up. So it's roll-on, it's easy to use. And the education I think that you're referring to is that there's two large MLMs, which are the giants in the essential oil industry. So they're both at $1 billion in sales, which is doTERRA and Young Living. And their whole strategy is DIY. So they really resonate with the DIY culture of you can mix your own oils and create your own blends and do it at home, which is very untrue. And to my understanding, internationally it is not allowed, because you do require some training. It's chemistry, oils together and putting it in different substances. It's chemistry, and it can absolutely be harmful. Essential oils can be used as medicine because they are so powerful. So when done incorrectly, they can also be harmful. So the whole point around 21 Drops was to, take the guesswork out of it and make it this really easy way for people to transform their health.
Right. And I think the other piece to that is, I think that people hear essential oils, or they see that stuff, and in speaking to Carrie, they either think it's woo-woo or they don't understand truly. I mean, and I'm being honest, because I've had to use these things, is that they don't understand all the medicinal pieces that go with it and how it really can transform. And so and it can be a little overwhelming in that piece. So to be able to get all of these things on a piece of paper in a company and a business model canvas to say, here's something that we are trying to explain to everybody to kick off, I think is a big challenge, because it's a beautiful concept, it's a beautiful idea. I think I only wish her the best in that. But I have epilepsy, and there's certain fragrances that I cannot use, and you're absolutely right. The other competitors that you named sold me all of those fragrances that I had to return because as an epileptic you can't use certain fragrances. It can cause you to have seizures, but they didn't say that. So I think that having that whole piece and being able to have that educational piece is a big part of that, and being able to understand customer profiles. But I think more importantly, I think your customer relationships in this instance is really important.
It is really important, and you know, Carrie really sees herself as a center of education, and so she has like an Ask Carrie on the page where you can write questions to her. We're going to be launching live chat where people could have sessions where they could discuss the issue and make sure that they're getting the right blend for them. And with most new business ideas, there is a little bit of customer education that's required. Having said that, fortunately, essential oils and the power of essential oil is pretty widely accepted now. It's a $5+ billion industry. So for us, and in this particular instance, it's really understanding what is the easier customer to acquire. Is it the mom who wants to do it herself, or is it the working mom, right? Is it Mother Nature in high heels, or is it someone else? So that's where you really got to create those customer profiles that are a little bit more specific, and start there. Start where there's no friction, right? Where people are just naturally coming to you in any case.
And kind of going thing for pets.
Of course, Mary has to talk about pets and the dogs and all that.
Well, we use them.
I don't know anything about
that. I told Carrie, and Carrie said it was a great idea.
But to bring it back to the business side of it, what I find interesting, because I find this interesting with a lot of these people that you speak to, is Carrie is awesome. And what does she love? She loves aromatherapy. She loves creating blends. She loves working with the customer. All of those things that she's really good at. So to bring in a third-party person that can help figure out this, create that right vision, and put these numbers down, to look at those numbers, that's what's so critical in so many people's businesses. We're so close to it. I think it can be challenging for us to take a step back and, like you said, work on our business instead of in our business. And so I think that's so important, whether you hire somebody like you to come in and do that, or you just work with other people that, or mastermind or whatever kind of group you have, to really get outside of your business, because oftentimes it's just hard to do. And I saw that in Carrie, because she's such a brilliant woman.
So Kavita, what is the best way to work with you?
Well, the best way to work with me is to contact me. You can do it on my website, which is havebigplans.com, or you can email me, message me. I'm also on in our Facebook group for the Office Depot Women's Symposium. So that's usually the best way to get in contact with me. And then we just decide if it's a good candidate, a good fit.
Okay.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any last minute pieces of advice or things that you want to make sure that you get out?
Sure. The last thought I had, which is brought up again by Carrie, because like you said, it's an amazing company doing really well. One of the things that companies that are on their growth path struggle with, that larger companies have to help them with, is advisory boards and board of directors, and that's where you get that outside perspective. So I would say, whether you hire somebody or you give someone equity, or however you might do it, though I do recommend it being contractual, because friends gives, it's funny, because even I work with family members sometimes, and it's a different type of advice than what you do when you're doing it for compensation. Just the psychology of it gets different. But however it is, find the right person and engage them to at least once a month do these check-ins, hold you accountable to your numbers, and to doing the things you've put down on paper. So create your own board, or even one-person board, if that's what it is. That's probably the other biggest thing after having a vision.
I think
love
that's
it.
a great piece of advice. I think, I think because as they put that together, you get lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're looking at it and you're so close. And then I can tell you unequivocally that I've been asked to do this twice with a friend. And I had to say, I'm sorry, I can't. Because if I do that, I don't think you want to hear what I have to say, good or bad. Because what will happen is you can't separate the differences. You have to put on a different hat. And you don't want to hear it. And so that's a very, very good point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually work with my clients to make them self-sufficient. So usually we work for 3 to 6 months to get them on the right path. And then it's just like a board check-in because it just keeps you focused on the canvas. It keeps you focused to deliver what you said you're going to deliver, even though it's for your own self.
That's awesome.
And I really encourage paying that person or compensating them in some way so they truly do take that position seriously. That's
awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that is a great last tip. I love it for sure. Actually, Mary, Mary and I don't do this together, but she definitely does not have an issue telling me what she really thinks, which I so appreciate. I really do appreciate it when she does that, but she does that with a lot of people, but yeah, not in any kind of a formal way. She'd be good though.
Yeah, well, Mary is board member.
Kavita, thank you. Kavita. I'm going to call you so you can help me.
Awesome,
yeah, right?
awesome.
Oh my gosh, for sure.
Well, thank you ladies both so much for inviting me on this platform. It's so nice.
I just really want you to know that, yes, I really want you to know that this is like the thing, people always ask us at the business, at our women's symposium when we talk about what we talk about and what we don't talk about, and you have to know, Kavita, that how important this is because so many times women don't want to talk about this because it's overwhelming. It's just really hard for them to understand. And it's not that they can't understand it, it's where do you start? How do you begin and how do you keep it in a context that they can get it? And you have mastered this in a one-sheeter. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So nice.
Thank you so much.
Kind.
We look forward to seeing you at some upcoming events. And
yes, I'll see you in a week.
We will see everyone else next time on Hanging Out at the Hive.
Bye.